My Educational Outlook by R.K. Narayan. Let's understand the complete essay in English. My educational outlook had always differed from those of my elders and well wishers. R.K. Narayan says that my educational perspective thinking is totally different from others, from my elders and from my well wishers. And after 5 or more decades, my views on education remain unchanged. Although in several other matters, my philosophy of life has undergone modification. Arkan says that my thinking in other areas of life, my philosophy has changed. But whereas education system of India is concerned, 5 or more decades have passed, but still I hold the same opinion, that is, Indian education system is not good. If a classification is called for, I may be labeled anti-educational because I don't like the educational system of India, and that's why people label me sometimes anti-educational. I am not averse to enlightenment, but I feel convinced that the entire organization, system, outlook, and aims of education are hopelessly wrong from beginning to end. Here he says that I want that Indians should learn, but problem is that entire organization, Indian educational system, outlook, aims are totally hopeless. They are wrong from beginning to end, from primary first year to PhD level. It is just a continuation of an original mistake. There is a mistake in our education system from primary first year to PhD level. Educational theories have become progressively high sounding, sophisticated, and jargon ridden like many other subjects, aspiring to the status of a science, but in practice, the process of learning remains primitive. He says that now we have started studying many subjects which are very sophisticated, which are progressively very difficult, also complicated, also jargon ridden, also, but the ways of learning, teaching is the same, that is primitive, means by torturing the students at school level, at college level. That is the wrong way. These ways are not the ways to learn. In the field of education, the educator and the educatee seemed to be arrayed in opposite camps, each planning how best to overwhelm the other. The problem of educational system in India is that the educator means the teacher, educatee means the students, they are in opposite camps. They always try to overwhelm, to impress others, while proper way of learning is that they should have mutual understanding. In my boyhood, the teacher never appeared in public without the cane in hand. He gives his own example. When he was a student in his childhood, he says that always teacher appeared with a cane in his hand. I used to think that once Guru was born clutching a cane in his right hand, while the left held a pinch of snuff between the thumb and forefinger, and in his left hand he used to have snuff for sniffing in his nose, and that's what was the image of a teacher, and since his childhood he has seen this image of a teacher. He took a deep inhalation before proceeding to flick the cane on whatever portion of myself was available for the purpose. He says that teacher always used to beat the students, and he also used to beat with his cane, and before proceeding for beating he would take deep inhalation, and whatever the portion of his body, may it be legs, hands, arms, back, then he would start beating. I really had no idea what I was expected to do or not do to avoid it. And he says that a student does not really know. I was also not knowing for what reason I was beaten. I could never imagine that a simple error of calculation in addition, subtraction, or multiplication, I never knew which, would drive anyone hysterical. So he says that a student is beaten for some even error like addition or subtraction or multiplication, and they are not knowing for which error they are being beaten, and just that would make the teacher hysterical, means mad, and he would start beating. I notice nowadays a little girl at home always playing the school game in a corner of the veranda, but never without a flat wooden foot rule in hand, which she flourishes menacingly at the pupils assembled. in her phantasmagoric classroom. Here RK Narayan is giving the example of a little girl who is playing the school game and in the corner of a veranda, and she is always having flat wooden foot rule in hand, which she flourishes to threaten the pupils, means the students, which have assembled in the classroom, and that is the image of a teacher, and all the students even in their school game behave like it, means a teacher can never be without foot rule or cane in his or her hand. On investigation, I found that the cane being discredited has yielded place to the foot rule, especially in convent schools. And here gives the example that in convent schools, cane has been replaced by foot rule. Again, the way is same. The students are threatened and beaten if they do something wrong, and they are scared by the teacher, and this is the way of teaching in India, and this is absolutely wrong. The foot rule has the advantage over the primitive birch of mauling without marking, which could count as an achievement in torturing technique, and it also possesses the innocent appearance of a non-violent pedagogic equipment. Here R.K. Narayan says that foot rule is the only advantage over primitive, that it is without marking. This torturing technique is the achievement, as there are no marks after beating, and this pedagogic equipment means this equipment for teaching is seemed, or it people feel that it is non-violent way, but still R.K. Narayan says that it is still violent and still it is torturing technique which is not good for our education system. A modern educator naturally has to adapt his ways to modern circumstances and put away obsolete weapons. Of course, there would be the change when we are changing with the time. Here we change the weapons also. Weapons, the purpose of weapons is same. Circumstances have become modern, but still we are torturing the students, we are scaring the students, and that is wrong. The flat scale is employed only at the primary stage, and here he gives the example that how the students are being tortured at primary and higher levels. At primary level, they are tortured with flat scale. At higher levels of education, torments to a young soul are devised in subtler forms progressively. There are other ways to torture the students at higher levels. Say for example, like admissions, textbooks and examinations are the triple weapons. Three weapons they have talked about: admissions, textbooks, examinations in the hands of an educator today. Today means at higher levels, educators are torturing the students in the name of admissions, in the name of textbooks, in the name of examinations. In June, every father and son go through a purgatory of waiting at the doors of every college. First, we are talking about admissions. For getting the admission, parents, students have to go to every college. There they have to wait, and this way they have to suffer. Provision of seats planned in a grand musical chair manner keeps every applicant running frantically about, unless as in certain well-geared technical colleges, the plume's 5,000 rupees for an engineering seat is considered quite reasonable nowadays. Here he is talking about that like there is a game, grand musical chair manner. In that game, there are less chairs and there are more who are willing to occupy the chairs. The same way in college, for getting admissions, there are limited seats, but there are more candidates who want to get admission. And we see in engineering colleges, here for getting admission, one has to pay the money like 5,000 rupees. Those days it was a very high amount, and to ensure their seat in engineering college. I recently met a hopeful father who had just written a check for 10,000 rupees for two sons in the first year BE in a certain college. And he gives the example of one father also who wrote a check of 10,000 rupees, 5,000 rupees for each son, and he had two sons for getting admission in Bachelor of Engineering BE. He is a businessman, fully aware of the debit and credit value of his action. Here, whatever the education or the degree we get, we calculate its market value. And here he has given the example of a father who has paid 10,000 rupees after calculating debit and credit value in the market, and must have undertaken the financial sacrifice after due consideration. When we spend so much of money, when we consider its value, formal value, and then we are ready to pay, when we feel that we would be able to recover that amount after spending in such manner. Those that cannot afford it have to queue up in the corridors of colleges, hunt and gather recommendations, plead, appeal, canvass, and lose weight until they find or do not find their names in the list of admissions. And here RK9 is talking about other parents and students also. Those who can't afford so high fee like 5,000 we have earlier talked about, they have to queue up in the corridors of colleges for getting admission. They have to hunt, they have to gather the recommendations, they have to appeal, plead, they have to talk to others, and they lose weight, because until they find or do not find their names, means until they ensure that they have got admission or they cannot get admission at all, until and they keep trying from pillar to post, and they suffer a lot this way. At the next stage, the student will once again queue up, beg, beat about, and appeal for textbooks this time, especially if it happens to be nationalized textbook, which may not be available until the young man is ready to leave the college. Now the second problem is of textbooks. The availability of textbooks, they are not available, and the students have to queue up, they have to beg, means request, they have to try here, there, and they have to appeal to get the textbooks. And especially if these are nationalized textbooks, they are not available anywhere, and until they are ready, means their study, their degree is about to finish, and but they are not able to have even textbooks. Finally, the examination, and the third step that he talks about of torture, that is of examination. In a civilized world, the examination system should have no place. It is a culmination of all sadistic impulses. This again he says that this way of torture is more sadistic, more painful than getting admissions or of textbooks. Learned commissions and conferences meet and speculate why young men are always on the verge of blasting street lamps and smashing furniture. When we talk of our educational system, especially examination system, when we see our young persons, young men means the students of the college, they smash furniture, they break street lamps, and our commissions, learned commissions means those whose responsibility is to regulate, to discipline everything, and they keep guessing why our youth, why our young men are causing so much problem. In technical language, it is known as student indiscipline. We can say the word student indiscipline as learned commissions say that the students are indisciplined. It has always amused one to note the concern the problem causes and how it always ends in woolly, banal resolutions such as, and what they suggest that what should be done to these students who are indisciplined. Students should be given compulsory military training, and such suggestions are given that the students should be given military training, asked to perform compulsory rule service, either they should do rule service or compulsory what not, means they keep giving different suggestions instead of knowing the exact cause of their problem. Students should keep out of politics, a great many others ought to keep out of politics too. In any case, it is too late to suggest this, as students were inveigled into politics not so long ago in our history, and some people suggest that they should not be allowed in politics, but in fact is that they are in politics in our history, means long time ago, and this is not the solution to their problem. The real wrecker of young nerves, however, is the examination system. It builds up a tension and anxiety neurosis day by day, all the year round, all through one's youth, right into middle age for some. And here talks about that young nerves means our young men, means college students have great problem of examination system. It makes them tense, it makes them anxious and they are really worried, and day by day as the examination system is very faulty, and from their youth even up to middle age they have great fear of our examination system because it is not good at all. I remember the desperate nervousness that debilitated me from January to April every year. Now RK Narayan is giving the example of his youth when the thought of exam came to his mind, especially from January to April every year. After 4 decades, I still jump off my bed from nightmares of examination. He is still scared of the examination system. 4 decades have passed. Still, when anybody talks about the examination system, and he jumps off his bed because it is very bad way of judging anybody's caliber. I feel convinced that the examination system was devised by a satanic mind. Some Satan devised this examination system and which causes really torture to the students. The anxiety and sleeplessness, the gamble over possible questions, the hush hush and grimness of the examination hall, the invigilators, the very word has a grand inquisitorial sound, watching like wardens at the gallows. Here, if we talk of anxiety and sleeplessness related to examination system, because we had to gamble, we had to guess possible questions, and when we see the examination hall, there is completely silence and there is grimness, very serious examination hall scenario, and the invigilators, those who are there on duty, and they just observe everybody and watching like wardens at the gallows where anybody is hanged, and they are just watching like the wardens. Means the whole atmosphere scenario is very serious, grim, sad. The awful ritual of breaking open the seal of the examination papers. The whole thing now appears ridiculously ritualistic and out of tune with the civilization in which man is capable of taking a stroll thousands of miles above the earth towards the moon. Arcanine says that the way examination papers, their seal is opened, and this ritual is really awful, frightening, scary, and especially at a time it seems to me ridiculous ritual because now our civilization is so advanced, we are capable of going even to the moon, and we are keeping these minor things, questions, as a secret from the students. If I become a vice chancellor, my first act would be to abolish all secrecy that surrounds question papers. Arcanine says that if I become vice chancellor, then I would end all secrecy that is surrounding question papers. Instead of permitting wild speculations, he says that there would be no need to speculate to guess which questions will be asked in the examination hall, or as it happens nowadays, advanced sale of questions in the black market. These days, questions are sold in advance in black market, and I would stop all these practices. I would take advertisement space in newspapers and publish the questions in every subject, adding under each a credit line set by Professor so and so. He says that I would make everything clear through newspapers, advertisement, and I would tell that who has set the question paper and which are the questions in every subject that will be asked. I would not hesitate to announce the names of those who are going to evaluate the answers and decree failures and successes. Not only that, he says that I would let know that who would be evaluating their answer sheets and who would mark them as failures or successes. Means they would mark them or give them the awards. I would add a postscript to every question paper. If you cannot answer any of the above questions, do not despair. Remember, your examiners are not infallible and may not do better if placed in your predicament. And I would add some line at the bottom to every question paper that suppose you are not able to answer any questions, so don't get sad, because your examiners also are not infallible, means they also can't attempt all of these questions. And if they are placed in your situation, means even your teachers, even your examiners can't attempt all the questions. That's why you also don't get despair, don't become sad. Your inability to answer will in no way be a reflection on your intelligence. Suppose you are not able to answer the questions, so that is not a question mark to your intelligence. We apologize for the embarrassment. Also remember, if you expect a first class and do not score even passing marks, do not rave against your examiner. And another thing, that you shouldn't feel embarrassed, because it is not the only your criterion judging your intelligence. And you must remember that if you are expecting first class position and you do not get even passing marks also, so you shouldn't get angry over your examiner who has evaluated your answer sheet. He is also a human being, subject to fluctuating moods caused by unexpected domestic calls or a bad digestion just when he is sitting down to correct your papers. Arcanine says that your examiner is also a human being. He may also have bad moods. He may also be affected by his domestic quarrels, or he may have bad digestion. There may be any problem with him when he sits to correct your papers, and he may not give you good marks. Also, not being an adding machine, occasionally he may slip and arrive at 7 while totaling 8 and 3. Please forgive him. He says that even sometimes after evaluating while making total of marks, adding 8 and 3, he may find 7, and he may give you 7 marks while adding 8 and 3. So this type of mistake also he may commit because he is not having any adding machine. So you please forgive him, means your examiner. At a certain university in America, I met an advanced soul. He taught political science 1 month before the annual examination. Now Arcanine gives the example of different professors. First he gives the example of one professor who was in America, and he was in political science, and he used to give the questions to his students, annual examination questions 1 month before. He cyclostyled or xeroxed the questions and distributed them among his students. That professor of America of political science used to give them cyclostyled or xeroxed questions to all his students 1 month before, who thereafter spent nearly 12 hours a day in the library in the assigned reading room. And after getting the questions, the students used to spend 12 hours a day in the library to understand those questions. I described to him our habits of hiding the questions till the last moment. And Arcanine says that to this professor of political science of America, I told our Indian way. He remarked, why on earth keep the boys in the dark over questions that after all concern them? As Arcanine told him that we keep the secret, hide the questions from the students, and he remarked that why do you keep your students in the dark when ultimately they have to solve those questions? I explained we believe in mugging up on an average 200 pages per subject and 15 subjects in a year. I told, what do we expect from our students in India? Students have to mug up, rote memorization. They have to remember 200 pages from each subject, and this way they have to cover 15 subjects in a year. One who can demonstrate that he can recollect 3000 pages in the examination hall will be considered a first class student in our country. In our country, one who can remember 3000 pages, 200 pages from each subject for 15 subjects in the examination hall, and such students are considered first class students in our country. Although he need not understand a word of what he reads or remember a syllable of what he has read after the examination, the whole aim of our education is to strain the faculty of memory. He said that the problem in our country is that we don't remember anything even during the exam or after the exam. We don't understand anything, just because the only purpose of our examination system is to strain, to put pressure on memory, and that is what is the purpose of India in education. Your system must have been devised before Caxton. when there was no printed book and handwritten books were chained and guarded. Then that professor of America of political science said that I feel that your system is devised before Caxton. Caxton who invented the printing press, and before printing press there were not many books or copies, there were only manuscripts, and all had not the opportunity to take the books with them, and that's why they used to memorize the way Indian system is based upon even these days. Memory is not so important today. Our need is for more libraries and multiple copies. The only condition I make for my boys is that they spend at least 6 hours a day in the library a month before the examination, and while writing their answers, I permit them to refer to the books. And again, this professor of America of political science said that I give multiple copies. This is the way. And the other thing is that I just want minimum 6 hours they should spend in the library before the examination, and I allow them even in the exam that they may refer to the books for giving the right answer. My only condition is that they should write their answers within the given time. That professor of political science of America just had one condition, that their students were supposed to write their answers within the given time. In my college days, I had a professor of history. Now R.K. Narayan gives another example of another professor who was a professor of history, who said, "It's a pity you have failed." He felt misery. He said that, "Oh, it's wrong that you have failed," to a student. If you did not know the answer, you could have written any answer you knew. As he said to him, that if you were not knowing answer, you could write any other answer. If you did not know anything of the subject, if you were not knowing any answer of the subject, you could just have copied the question paper. This was the another option that professor of history gave to the student. If you could not do even that, you could have told me that I would have given you marks. I did not know you were an examiner, sir. And he even said that even if you could not write anything in the exam, then also I could help you. But the student said that, "Sir, I was not knowing that you were the examiner." What a pity. They ought not to keep it a secret. He said that, oh, they should not keep it a secret from the students that who is the examiner. All our troubles are due to it. When the students are not knowing their examiner, and many troubles, problems are because of this reason. After all, you have listened to my lectures for a year, and that's enough. As he gave his argument logic that if a student has attended whole year the classes, and that is enough in itself. Even if a student does not write in the examination hall, then also it's okay. He should be given good marks. I had another professor from Scotland who taught us English. Now third example of another professor who was of English. He was from Scotland, an enlightened soul who marked a minimum of 35% on all papers and raised it on request. And he also had one good approach. He always gave 35 marks to all the students, and when the students requested, then he would raise them also. He was accessible and amenable to reason and even to bargaining, and students could approach him, could access him, and he on bargaining, when any logic argument was given by a student, then he would have changed the marks also. He would ask, then in such situations he would ask the students, what marks do you expect to get, and what percentage student was expecting to get. 60, sir. He would pick up the answer paper, glance through it, shake his head ruefully. I have given you the minimum, of course, but I'll raise it to 40. The student who expected 60 marks would tell the professor, and professor would glance through the answer paper and shake his head. Oh no, I have given you the minimum, but anyway you are requesting it, I will raise it to 40. Sir, please make it 52. I want at least second division. When the student requested for 52 marks for getting second division, all right, I hope your interest in literature is genuine. Undoubtedly. Then professor would say that feel that your interest is genuine. Oh, but for this noble soul, I'd never have passed in English. So this way Arkin says that he used to raise the marks as desired by the students, and if there would have been not such noble soul, I would not any time would be able to pass in the subject of English. Here is an instance of memory without intelligence. Here Arkin gives the example of our education system, how it is based upon memory, not on intelligence. A story of mine called Attila has found its way into pre-university prose. In a certain university, I had a chance of learning how questions on the story were answered. He says that my story Attila has been prescribed in pre-university prose in certain university. And once I got the chance to see how the questions were answered by the students. A few answers were just line by line reproductions of the original. He says that some answers were just reproductions line by line from the story. But nowhere could I see that they had realized that the story was about a dog. And Arkin says that when he evaluated the answers, nowhere he realized that the students understood that this story was about a dog. I was even asked once, he says that even once I was asked also, when did Attila do all that you describe? They asked the question, and really it showed that they did not understand what Attila was. I searched European history and the encyclopedia, but nowhere do I find this episode mentioned. What is the source of your information, sir? That student said to him when he asked the question that they searched everywhere, but they did not find what Attila was and how he got the information about Attila. Two more gems to conclude this piece. He says that this our education system is based upon memory, not on intelligence. He gives another example also. R.K. Narayan was a romantic poetess who died in 1749. So this way they really did not understand, they were not knowing, and even they could not differentiate R.K. Narayan was a poet, novelist or poetess, or he is alive or dead. This way our education system is completely based upon memory. Long after getting his BA degree, a person met his old teacher and confessed, I am sorry, sir, I never knew till today that Lady Macbeth was a woman. One student, after completing his graduation, he confessed that he never realized as a student that Lady Macbeth was a woman. Another teacher was asked an hour before the literature paper, is King Lear a tragedy or comedy, sir? So this way students really don't understand even before the exam. When a student is supposed to prepare complete and know well everything, but they are asking that whether King Lear is a tragedy or comedy. This way there is focus on memorization, not on understanding. I mention this without comment. If our educational system is not to continue as a well endowed, elaborately organized, deep rooted farce, a remedy must be found immediately. Here, Arkanan has given so many examples to just prove that our educational system is completely a farce, and it is organized and deep rooted, and then it should be changed. A remedy, solution should be found immediately to this educational system. I dare not end this on a note suggesting crisis. As before the ink on this sentence dries, academic experts and ministers of education are likely to pack up and leave for New York, Rio de Janeiro, or Toronto. Here he says that really there is a crisis on our educational system when we talk of resolving the same, but our academic experts, our ministers of education, they pack up and then they go to New York, Rio de Janeiro, or Toronto, means they go to some other country in accordance with an almost superstitious belief among our leaders in all fields that when there is a crisis at home, the thing to do is to buy a round the world air ticket and leave, because they believe whenever there is a crisis at home or this is their belief, blind belief, that better to leave and go for some time in some other country, get air ticket and have a break, and then it is the only way to resolve the problem. Thank you.